The transport shuttle touched down on the landing pad with a loud thud. Dust and smoke rose from the engines as they powered down. Captain Hajin stepped out into the bright alien sunlight, her boots making heavy sounds on the metal platform. Behind her, Lieutenant Tejo followed, carrying their gear bags. The first thing Hajin noticed was the stairs. Dozens of alien soldiers stood around the landing area, and they were all looking at her. Not the respectful kind of looking that a captain should get. They were looking at her like she was something strange or funny. Hajin looked down at herself. Her armor was old, that was true. The metal plates were scratched and dented from many battles. Some parts had been repaired with different colored metal. Her helmet hung from her belt, showing more scratches and worn paint. Next to the shiny, smooth armor of the alien soldiers, she probably looked like a beggar. "Captain," Tejo said quietly, "they seem very interested in us." "Let them look," Hajin replied. She picked up her rifle case and started walking toward the base entrance. The weapon case was as beaten up as her armor. More stairs followed them. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens pointed at her and made sounds that might have been laughter. Their armor glowed with energy shields that moved like water over the surface, very advanced. Very expensive looking. Near the entrance, a young human private was waiting for them. He looked fresh from training, with clean armor and nervous eyes. When he saw Hajin, his face showed surprise. "Captain Hajin?" the private asked. "I'm Private Jinwoo. I was told to escort you to Commander Veltar." "Good," Hajin said. "Lead the way." As they walked through the base, Jinwoo kept glancing back at her armor. Finally, he couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Captain, if you don't mind me asking, why don't you have newer gear?" "The quartermaster here has the latest human armor. Energy. Shields, self-repair systems, the works." Hajin smiled a little. "This armor works fine. But it looks like it's been through a war," Jinwoo said. "Several wars," Tejo corrected. "The captain has seen more combat than most people see in 10 lifetimes. They passed another group of aliens. These ones had crystal-like skin that sparkled in the light. They wore armor that looked like it was made from the same crystal material. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward as they approached. "So, this is the famous human warrior we've heard about," the crystal being said. His voice sounded like music, but not the nice kind. "I expected someone more ... Hajin stopped and looked at him. "You must be from the Nexari species. I can tell by the crystal formation on your chest. Third-rank warrior, based on the patterns." The Nexari seemed surprised that she knew so much. "I am Keshler. And yes, I am a third-rank warrior, soon to be second rank after this mission." "Good for you," Hajin said and started walking again. "Wait," Keshler called. "Is that really your battle armor? It looks like something from a museum." Several other aliens had gathered to watch. Hajin could hear whispers in different languages. Some were laughing. "It is my armor," Hajin said simply. "But surely you have something more modern." "Something with proper protection?" Keshler pointed at his own shimmering armor. "This has shields that can stop plasma bolts and energy beams." "What can your metal plates stop?" "Everything that has tried to kill me so far," Hajin replied. This made the aliens laugh louder. Keshler's crystal face showed what might have been amusement. "I think there has been a mistake," Keshler said to Jinwoo. "We were told we would be working with elite human warriors. This looks like someone pulled from a historical reenactment." Tejo's face turned red with anger, but Hajin put a hand on his arm to stop him from speaking. "Perhaps," Keshler continued, "it would be better if the humans stayed behind for this mission. We wouldn't want anyone to get hurt because of inadequate equipment." "I'll try to keep up," Hajin said calmly. Jinwoo hurried them away from the crowd. As they walked, he kept apologizing. "I'm sorry about that, Captain. The alien forces here, they think their technology makes them superior. They don't understand human tactics." "What do they understand?" Hajin asked. "Advanced shields, energy weapons, computer-assisted targeting. Most of them have armor that can think for itself. Some have weapons that never miss." "Interesting," Hajin said. They reached a large building at the center of the base. The sign above the door had symbols from many different alien languages. Jin Woo led them inside to a waiting area. "The commander will see you soon," Jin Woo said. "Can I ask you something, Captain?" "Go ahead." "Why do you really keep that old armor? I've heard stories about you. They say you're one of the best soldiers humanity has ever produced. You could have any equipment you wanted." Hajin sat down and looked at her armor. She ran her finger along one of the many scratches on the chest plate. "This armor has been with me for 15 years, she said. "It has never let me down. Every dent, every scratch, every repair tells a story. When I look at it, I remember every battle, every enemy, every lesson learned." "But wouldn't newer armor be better?" Jinwoo asked. "Better at what? Looking impressive?" "Maybe, but this armor fits me perfectly. I know exactly how it moves, how it feels, what it can do. I know which parts are stronger and which parts need to be careful with. I trust it." Taeho nodded. "The captain's armor is famous in human military. Circles, other soldiers study it." "Study it?" Before anyone could answer, the office door opened. A large reptilian alien stepped out. His scales were dark green with gold markings that showed his rank. This was Commander Veltar. "Captain Hajin," the commander said in accented but clear English. "Welcome to Forward Base Epsilon 7. I am Commander Veltar. We have been expecting you." Hajin stood and saluted. "Thank you, Commander." Veltar looked at her armor with interest, but not mockery like the others. "I have read your service record, very impressive. Though I must admit, I expected your equipment to be more modern. My equipment serves its purpose, sir. I'm sure it does. Please come into my office. We have much to discuss." As they entered the office, Hajin could hear more alien voices. Outside, word was spreading quickly about the human captain with the old armor. She could hear laughter and comments in languages she didn't recognize, but the tone was clear enough. "Don't mind them," Commander Veltar said, closing the door. "Most of my soldiers have never worked with humans before. They judge by appearance rather than capability." "Understandable," Hajin said. "Is it? I have learned not to underestimate any species, especially humans. Your people have a reputation for being unpredictable." Hajin smiled slightly. "We try our best." Outside the office, she could still hear the alien soldiers talking. Tomorrow, they would all learn why her armor looked the way it did. Tomorrow, they would understand that every scratch had a story, and every story ended the same way, with her enemies dead and her still standing. The briefing room was huge, with seats arranged in a circle around a large holographic display. Representatives from 6 different species sat in their designated areas. Hajin counted the forces: 12 Nexari crystal warriors, 8 Velkari. Reptilian soldiers, 10 insectoid Zek fighters, 6 gaseous mist beings in containment suits, 14 Rontek metal-skinned troops, and only 5 humans including herself. Commander Veltar stood at the center, manipulating the holographic display. With hand gestures, the image showed a planet with red skies and jagged mountains. "This is Kepler 442c, the commander began. 3 days ago, our long-range scouts discovered a major enemy stronghold on the northern continent. Intelligence suggests this is where they are manufacturing their new weapon systems." The display zoomed in on a fortress built into the side of a mountain. The structure was massive, with multiple levels carved deep into the rock. Energy shields covered the entire complex like a glowing dome. "Previous attempts to assault this position have failed," Veltar continued. 2 weeks ago, a Velkari strike team was completely destroyed. Last week, a Nexari assault group suffered 90% casualties and had to retreat. Murmurs went around the room. Hajin noticed that the Nexari section looked uncomfortable at this reminder. "The enemy has advantages," Veltar said. "They know the terrain, they have superior defensive positions, and their weapons are specifically designed to counter our most advanced technology." A Velkari officer raised his clawed hand. "Commander, what makes you think this mission will succeed where others have failed?" "Because this time we are using a different approach," Veltar replied. We are combining the best elements from all our species into one strike team. Different tactics, different technologies, different ways of thinking. Keshler, the Nexari warrior from earlier, stood up. His crystal armor caught the light from the hologram. Commander, with respect, we have reviewed the personnel files. Why are humans included in this mission? Their technology is primitive. Compared to ours, several aliens nodded in agreement. Hajin felt Teho tense beside her, but she remained calm. The humans are here because they have something the rest of us lack, Veltar said. What could they possibly have that we don't? Asked a Zek fighter, his insect-like head tilting with curiosity. Before Veltar could answer, another human stood up. This was Mi Young, the engineer and explosives expert. She was small and quiet, but Hajin knew her reputation. We have experience fighting enemies who are more advanced than us, Mi Young said simply. The room fell silent. Hajin could see the aliens thinking about this statement. Keshler laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Experience losing, you mean? Experience winning, Hajin said, speaking for the first time since entering the room. Every head turned toward her. Humans have spent centuries fighting enemies with better weapons, better armor, better technology. We learned how to win anyway. How? Asked a mist being through its translator device, by being smarter, by adapting, by never giving up. Hajin stood and walked to the holographic display. May I, Commander? Veltar nodded. Hajin began manipulating the controls, zooming in on different sections of the enemy fortress. This base was designed to stop energy weapons, she said, pointing to the shield generators. See how the shields curve? They're made to deflect plasma, bolts, and laser beams. But look at the physical structure underneath. The aliens leaned forward to study the image. The walls are thin, Hajin continued. They relied on the energy shields for protection. Take down the shields, and the fortress becomes vulnerable to conventional explosives. The shields are powered by fusion generators deep inside the mountain, Keshler objected. They cannot be reached. Not from outside, Hajin agreed. But every fusion generator needs cooling systems. And cooling systems need vents to the surface. She highlighted several small openings scattered around the fortress. They looked insignificant compared to the massive weapons installations. These vents are too small for your energy weapons to be effective, Hajin said. But they're perfect for human explosives. Mi Young stood up again. I can make charges small enough to fit through those vents. Once they're inside the cooling system, they'll cause the fusion generators to overheat. The generators will automatically shut down to prevent explosion, a Rontek engineer pointed out. Exactly, Hajin said. No generators, no shields. Shields, and the rest of us can attack the base directly. The room was quiet as the aliens processed this plan. It was simple compared to their usual high-tech approaches. But getting to those vents will be extremely dangerous, a Velkari officer said. The enemy has sensors and automated defenses covering the entire area. That's where the rest of the team comes in, Hajin replied. She turned to address the different species. Nexari crystal armor can deflect sensor beams. Zek fighters can fly over difficult terrain. Velkari troops can provide heavy support. Mist beings can scout ahead without being detected. Rontek soldiers can carry the heavy equipment. And what will the humans do while we're risking our lives? Keshler asked Hajin. Look directly at him. We'll do what we always do. Whatever needs to be done. Commander Veltar took control of the briefing again. The mission will begin tomorrow at dawn. Transport ships will take us to the planet's surface. From there, we'll have a 40-kilometer march to reach the target zone. 40 kilometers through. Enemy territory, muttered a Zek fighter. The terrain is rough, Veltar continued. Rocky hills, deep valleys, limited visibility. Perfect for ambush. But also perfect for our smaller strike team to move undetected. He manipulated the display to show the planned route. It wound through mountain passes and across dangerous-looking terrain. Each species will contribute their strengths, Veltar sighed. Mist beings will scout ahead. Zek fighters will provide air support. Nixari warriors will handle energy-based threats. Valkyrie troops will engage heavy resistance. Rontek soldiers will carry supplies and provide technical support. And the humans? Keshler asked again. The humans will do what they do best, Veltar replied. Improvise, adapt, overcome. After the briefing ended, the different species gathered in their own groups to discuss the mission. Hajin noticed how they kept glancing at the human section with doubtful expressions. Teho leaned close to Hajin. Captain, they don't trust us. Good, Hajin replied. Trust has to be earned. How do we earn it? By doing our job. Across the room, Keshler was talking loudly to his fellow Nixari warriors. His voice carried clearly in the large room. I still say this is a mistake, he was saying. We should handle this mission ourselves. Those humans with their primitive weapons will just get in the way, or worse, get us all killed. Other aliens nodded in agreement. Hajin could see them looking at her armor again, shaking their heads at the scratched and dented metal. My Young walked over to Hajin. Captain, should we show them what human equipment can really do? No need, Hajin replied. They'll see. Soon enough. The explosives I'm bringing tomorrow are quite impressive, Mi Young continued. Much more powerful than anything their energy weapons can produce. I'm sure they are, Hajin said, but power isn't everything. What do you mean? Hajin ran her hand along one of the scratches on her armor. The best weapon is the one that gets the job done. Doesn't matter if it's the newest or the prettiest, or the most expensive. What matters is that it works when you need it to. Teho nodded in understanding. That's why you keep the old armor. This armor has never failed me, Hajin said. Every scratch on it represents a battle won, an enemy defeated, a mission completed. Why would I trust my life to something untested, when I have something that has already proven itself? As they prepared to leave the briefing room, Commander Veltar approached them. Captain Hajin, he said quietly, I hope you understand the importance of this mission. If we fail the enemy, we'll complete their new weapons. The war could be lost. We won't fail, Hajin said simply. How can you be so confident? Hajin looked around the room at all the alien soldiers with their advanced technology and superior evolution. Because, she said, they're expecting to fight aliens with energy weapons and computer targeting. They're not expecting to fight humans with old armor and simple weapons. Sometimes the best strategy is to be completely different from what your enemy is prepared for. Veltar studied her weathered armor one more time. I hope you're right, Captain. So do I, Hajin replied. But hoping won't win this battle. Doing will. Tomorrow, they would all find out exactly what humans could do. The planet's surface was worse than the briefing had suggested. Red dust filled the air, making it hard to see more than 50 meters ahead. The ground was covered with sharp rocks that made walking difficult. Strange plants with metal-like leaves grew from cracks in the stone, creating an alien forest that blocked their view. The strike team had been walking for 6 hours. Hajin moved near the middle of the group, her old boots making steady sounds. On the rocky ground. Around her, the alien soldiers showed off their advanced equipment. The Nexari warriors floated slightly above the ground using anti-gravity generators in their armor. The Zek fighters used their wings to hop over obstacles. The mist beings drifted through the air like smoke. Contact ahead, announced Silwek, one of the mist beings. His voice came through the team's communication system as a whisper. Automated defenses. 3 sensor towers, multiple weapon platforms. Hajin activated her scope and studied the enemy. Position. Through the red dust, she could see the gleaming metal of the towers. Energy weapons moved back and forth, scanning for intruders. Standard defensive pattern, observed Keshler. Energy shields protecting the main systems. Plasma cannons for long-range engagement. Force barriers to prevent ground assault. Commander Veltar, who was leading the mission, called for a halt. The team gathered behind a large rock formation. Recommendations? Veltar asked. Simple, said Keshler. Frontal assault. Our shields can handle their plasma fire. We destroy the towers with concentrated energy beams. The other aliens nodded. In agreement, it sounded like a good plan to them. Sir, Hajin said quietly to Veltar. May I suggest a different approach? Go ahead, Captain. Let me study their defensive pattern first. Give me 10 minutes. Keshler's crystal face showed annoyance. We don't have time for human hesitation. Every moment we wait, they're calling for reinforcements. 5 minutes. Hajin said to Veltar. The commander nodded. Hajin moved to a better position and began watching the enemy defenses through her scope. She counted the weapons, timed their movement patterns, and studied how they responded to small movements. In the area, meanwhile, the aliens prepared for their assault. The Nexari warriors charged their energy weapons. The Velkari troops activated their heavy plasma cannons. The Zek fighters spread their wings, ready to attack from above. After 5 minutes, Hajin returned to the group. What did you learn? Veltar asked. The defensive system is automated, Hajin reported. It responds to energy signatures, movement patterns, and heat sources, but it has blind spots. Where? Asked a Velkari officer. The sensors are designed to detect energy weapons. They're focused on scanning for plasma charges, laser targeting systems, and shield generators. So? Keshler demanded. So they're not looking for low-tech threats. Hajin pulled out her rifle. It was old-fashioned, using chemical explosives to fire metal bullets. This weapon doesn't produce energy signatures. The targeting system might not even recognize it as a weapon. The aliens looked skeptical. Energy weapons were obviously superior to primitive projectile weapons. Captain, said Mi Young, are you suggesting we attack with just conventional weapons? I'm suggesting we test their responses, Hajin replied. See what they're actually prepared for. Before anyone could object, Keshler stood up. Enough discussion, we attack now. He activated his crystal armor's energy shields and charged toward the enemy position. The other Nexari warriors followed, their weapons glowing with power. Behind them, the Velkari troops opened fire with their plasma cannons. The response was immediate and devastating. The automated defenses locked onto the energy signatures instantly. Plasma bolts filled the air. Force barriers activated, creating invisible walls that stopped the alien assault. Energy feedback systems overloaded several of the attacking weapons. Within seconds, 3 Nexari warriors were down with damaged armor. 2 Velkari soldiers had their weapons destroyed. The Zek fighters, caught in the crossfire, were forced to retreat. Fall back, Veltar ordered. The surviving aliens retreated behind the rocks, dragging their wounded with them. Keshler's beautiful crystal armor was cracked and smoking. Impossible, he gasped. Our intelligence said this would be a standard defensive network. It is standard, Hajin said, for fighting energy-based weapons. She checked her rifle and started moving toward the enemy position, staying low and using the rocks for cover. Captain, what are you doing? Tejo called. Testing a theory. Hajin moved carefully, watching the sensor towers. The weapons tracked back and forth, but they didn't focus on her. She was producing no energy signature, no heat bloom from powered weapons, no electronic signals. From her position behind a boulder, she aimed at the nearest sensor array and fired. The bullet struck the delicate equipment, causing sparks and smoke. The sensor went offline. The defensive system didn't react. It didn't know what had happened. Hajin fired again, taking out a second sensor, then a third. Each shot caused more damage, but the automated systems couldn't identify the threat. Incredible, whispered Veltar. The defenses can't detect her attacks. With 3 sensors down, blind spots appeared in the defensive network. Hajin signaled to the rest of the team. Dong Haiyan, she called to the human sniper. Can you reach those weapon platforms from here? Dong Haiyan set up his rifle and studied the target. Like Hajin's weapon, it was old-fashioned but effective. Yes, Captain. Clear shot. Take them down. Dong Haiyan's rifle cracked once, twice, 3 times. Each shot destroyed a plasma cannon. The defensive network was falling apart, but still couldn't identify what was attacking it. So Young, Hajin called to the human medic. How are our wounded? The aliens will be fine, So Young reported. Their armor protected them from serious injury. Just some burns and electrical feedback. With the sensors and heavy weapons destroyed, Hajin stood up and walked toward the enemy position. The remaining defensive systems tried to target her, but without proper sensors. They couldn't lock on. She reached the main control tower and planted one of Mi Young's explosive charges. The blast destroyed the central computer, shutting down the entire defensive network. All clear, Hajin announced. The alien soldiers slowly emerged from cover, staring in amazement at the destroyed defenses. What had seemed impossible just minutes ago was now complete. I don't understand, Keshler said. His damaged armor sparked occasionally. How did simple projectile weapons defeat advanced energy shields? They didn't defeat the shields, Hajin explained. They bypassed them. The shields were designed to stop energy attacks. My bullets are just metal and chemicals. No energy signature to detect. But projectile weapons are so primitive, protested a Zek fighter. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective, said Dong Hyan, packing up his rifle. Sometimes simple solutions work better than complicated ones. Mi Young walked over to examine the destroyed defensive network. Look at this design, she said. They spent so much effort making it proof against energy weapons that they forgot about everything else. It's like building a door that can stop a tank but can't stop someone with a key. Teho, added. Commander Veltar approached Hajin. Captain, I owe you an apology and my thanks. No need for either, sir. We're all on the same side. But your tactics saved lives today. My soldiers were prepared to fight advanced technology with advanced technology. You fought it with knowledge and adaptation. Keshler limped over, his crystal armor still smoking. Human, he said reluctantly, I may have underestimated your methods. Easy mistake to make, Hajin replied. A lot of people think newer means better. Doesn't it? Hajin looked at her scratched and dented armor, then at his cracked crystal suit. My armor is 15 years old and still protecting me. How old is yours? It was made last month with the latest technology. And now? Keshler looked down at the cracks and damage. Now it needs major repairs before it can be used again. Sometimes, Hajin said, the old ways work because they've been tested. They've proven themselves. New technology is impressive, but experience is reliable. As the team continued their march toward the main target, the mood had changed. The alien soldiers no longer looked at the human equipment with mockery. They began asking questions about human tactics and weapons. Captain, asked a Valkyrie officer, how did you know their sensors would miss projectile weapons? Experience. Hajin answered, I've fought automated defenses before. Most designers assume their enemies will use the same type of technology they do. They prepare for what they expect, not for what might actually come. So humans deliberately use older technology to confuse enemies? Sometimes, but mostly we use what works. If a simple solution gets the job done, why make it complicated? The red dust began to clear as they moved further into the mountains. Ahead, they could see the glow of the main enemy fortress. It was huge, built into the mountain itself, protected by the most advanced shields and weapons the enemy possessed. That, said Veltar, will be much harder to defeat. Hajin studied the fortress through her scope. She could see multiple layers of defenses, energy barriers, and weapon platforms. It looked impossible to attack. Maybe, she said finally. But impossible things have a way of becoming possible when you look at them the right way. The aliens around her were beginning to believe that might be true. The human with the old armor had already done one impossible thing. The enemy outpost was now theirs. The strike team had taken it in less than an hour, thanks to Hajin's tactics. Now they were using it as a temporary base while they planned their assault on the main fortress. The building was small but well built, with thick walls that would protect them from enemy patrols. Hajin sat on a supply crate, cleaning her rifle. The weapon was old but well maintained. Every part had been cared for, every mechanism checked and rechecked. Around her, the alien soldiers were tending to their equipment and wounds. The Nexari warriors were having trouble with their crystal armor. The energy feedback from the battle had caused cracks throughout the suits. They were using repair tools, but the damage was extensive. This will take hours to fix, complained Keshler, running a scanner over his damaged chest plate. The crystal matrix has been disrupted in 17 different places. At least your armor can be repaired, said a Valkyrie officer. His plasma rifle had been completely destroyed by an energy overload. I'll have to fight with a backup weapon for the rest of the mission. The Zek fighters were checking their wings for damage. Flying through the plasma fire had singed several of their flight feathers. The mist beings were analyzing their containment suits for leaks. Even the tough Rontek soldiers were dealing with damaged equipment. Only the humans seemed unaffected. Their gear was old and simple, but it was all still working perfectly. Hyun-Su, the human quartermaster, was making notes on his tablet. He kept track of all equipment and supplies for the human team. As he worked, he glanced occasionally at Hajin's armor. "Captain," he said finally, "may I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Your armor. I've been looking at it during the mission, and I'm starting to notice things." "What kind of things?" Hyun-Su hesitated. "Patterns in the scratches and marks. They're not random damage from battle. They look almost organized." Several alien soldiers nearby stopped what they were doing and listened. "What do you mean, organized?" asked Kes single quotes Lar. Hyun-Su pointed to Hajin's shoulder plate. "Look at these marks here. They're grouped together. Same type of scratch, same depth, but in different clusters." "Battle damage," said a Valkyrie soldier. "What else would it be?" "That's what I thought at first," Hyun-Su continued. "But the more I look, the more I see patterns." "Groups of marks. Different types for different areas. Almost like ... double quotes." He stopped, looking uncertain. "Like what?" Hajin asked. "Like keeping score," Hyun-Su finished quietly. The area around them became very quiet. All the aliens were now paying attention. "Score of what?" Keshler demanded. Hajin continued cleaning her rifle. "Why don't you take a closer look?" Hyun-Su approached carefully. Other soldiers, both alien and human, gathered around. Hajin sat still while they examined her armor. "These marks on the shoulder," said a Zek fighter, tracing them with his claw, "they're all the same. Small cuts, very precise. There are, let me count, 43 of them. And these on the chest plate," added a mist being, "deeper scratches. Different pattern, 27 of them. The arm guard has different marks entirely," observed a Rontek soldier. "Burns, like from energy weapons, 15 distinct marks." Keshler was studying the helmet that hung from Hajin's belt. His crystal face showed confusion and growing concern. "These marks," he said slowly, "they're organized by type. The scratches on the shoulder are all identical. The burns on the arm are all the same size. The cuts on the chest are all the same depth." "So?" asked the young Valkyrie soldier. "So this isn't random battle damage," Keshler replied. "This is deliberate. Someone made these marks on purpose." All eyes turned to Hajin. She had finished cleaning her rifle and was now checking her ammunition. "Captain," Hyun-Su said carefully, "are these marks what I think they are?" "Depends on what you think they are. Kill marks?" Hyun-Su said quietly. "You've been keeping count of every enemy you've killed and marking them on your armor." The silence that followed was complete. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. "Is that true?" Keshler asked. Hajin looked up from her ammunition check. "Yes, you mark your armor every time you kill an enemy? Every confirmed kill gets a mark. Different marks for different species. I like to keep accurate records." The aliens looked at each other with expressions of shock and growing fear. "How many?" whispered a Zek fighter. "How many what?" "How many kills?" Hajin considered the question. "I'd have to count them all to give you an exact number. But it's been 15 years of active combat, so quite a few." Keshler was still staring at her helmet. "These burn marks on the helmet, they look like the pattern of Nexari energy weapons." "That's because they are," Hajin confirmed. "Each mark represents one Nexari warrior killed in combat." Keshler counted the marks. His crystal face went pale. "There are 42 marks here. 42 confirmed kills," Hajin agreed. "I only mark the ones I'm certain about." "But that's impossible," Keshler protested. Nexari warriors are among the most advanced fighters in the galaxy. Our armor, our weapons, our training are all very impressive, Hajin finished, but not perfect. She pointed to one of the burn marks on her helmet. This one was from a Nexari commander on Kepler 7. He had shields that could stop plasma bolts and armor that could deflect laser beams. But he'd never fought against explosive rounds before. Explosive rounds? Simple bullets with small charges inside? They punch through energy shields like they're not even there? Hajin pointed to another mark. This one was on Vega Station. A Nexari assassin with cloaking technology. She thought she was invisible. How did you defeat cloaking technology? Asked a mist being. Thermal imaging. Her cloak hid her from visual and energy scanners, but it couldn't hide her body heat. Humans have been using thermal vision for centuries. The aliens were now studying every mark on her armor with fascination and horror. These scratches on the chest, said a Velkari officer. They look like claw marks. Velkari warriors, Hajin confirmed. 27 confirmed kills. How? Velkari are tough and strong, but you rely too much on close combat. You like to get in close and use your claws and teeth, but that means getting within range of human close combat weapons. She pulled a knife from her belt. It was simple metal, but razor sharp and perfectly balanced. This knife has been with me for 12 years. Velkari armor is designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles, but it has weak points at the joints. If you know where to strike, the Velkari soldiers unconsciously check their armor joints. What about these? Asked a Zek fighter, pointing to a series of small holes in her arm guard. Zek stingers, Hajin said. 15 confirmed kills. But Zek fighters can fly. We have mobility advantages. Flying makes you visible, Hajin replied. And human. Anti-aircraft weapons have been effective for centuries. A simple rocket-propelled grenade can bring down a flying target very effectively. The Zek fighters looked uncomfortable. The important thing, Hajin continued, is learning from each encounter. Every mark on this armor represents a lesson learned. How each species fights, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You study us, said a mist being, like we're specimens. I study everyone who might be an enemy? That's how you stay alive in war? Keshler was adding up numbers in his head. 42 Nexari, 27 Velkari, 15 Zek. Captain, how? Many beings have you killed? Hajin looked at her armor. Every mark represents a life taken. Every life taken was someone trying to kill me or my fellow soldiers. Every mark is a reminder that war is serious business. But how many total? More than I like to think about. Fewer than were trying to kill me. The aliens began to understand what they were looking at. This wasn't just old armor. It was a record of violence, a catalog of death, a history written in scratches and burns and dents. Are we sorted by species? Keshler asked quietly. It's easier to keep track that way. Nexari marks on the helmet, Velkari on the chest, Zek on the arms, mist beings on the legs, Rontak on the backplate. Alphabetical order, whispered Hyansu. What? You've arranged them alphabetically by species name? The marks are organized in alphabetical order. Hajin shrugged. I like to keep things organized. The realization hit the aliens like a physical blow. This human hadn't just killed members of their species. She had killed so many that she needed an organizational system to keep track of them. How? Keshler asked. How have you survived so many battles? By learning, Hajin replied. By adapting. By never underestimating an enemy and never giving up. And by keeping old armor that's proven itself in battle, added Teho. The aliens looked at Hajin's scratched, dented, repaired armor with new understanding. Every mark was a victory, every repair was a survival. Every scratch was proof that she had faced death and won. Tomorrow, said Commander Veltar quietly, we attack the main fortress. The aliens nodded, but their expressions had changed. They were no longer looking at a primitive human with outdated equipment. They were looking at a walking catalog of their species' defeats, a survivor who had turned killing into a science, and they were very glad she was on their side. Night had fallen on the alien world. The captured outpost was quiet except for the sound of sentries walking their posts. Most of the strike team was trying to sleep before tomorrow's assault on the main fortress. But sleep didn't come easily after the day's revelations. Hajin sat outside the building, keeping watch. Her rifle lay across her knees and her helmet sat beside her. In the dim light from the two moons, the marks on her armor looked like shadows. Dancing across the metal, footsteps approached. Keshler emerged from the darkness, his crystal armor dimmed to avoid reflecting moonlight. He sat down on a rock near Hajin, but not too close. "I can't sleep," he said. "Many people have trouble sleeping before battle," Hajin replied. "It's not the battle that bothers me. It's those marks on your armor." Hajin waited for him to continue. 42 Nexari warriors, Keshler said quietly. "In 15 years of fighting, you've killed 42 of my people." "Confirmed kills only," Hajin corrected. "There were others, but I couldn't be certain." "More than 42? Probably." Keshler was quiet for a long moment. "Would you tell me about them? About how they died?" "Why?" "Because I need to understand. My people are proud warriors. We train from childhood. Our technology is advanced. Our tactics are proven. How did one human defeat so many of us?" Hajin picked up her helmet and pointed to one of the burn marks. "This one was my first Nexari kill. I was 22 years old, barely out of training myself." "Where?" "Border skirmish. On Tau Ceti 4, your people were raiding human supply convoys. I was part of the security team for one of those convoys." Keshler leaned forward. "Tell me what happened." "The Nexari warrior was young, like me, probably overconfident. He attacked our convoy alone, thinking his shields and energy weapons would be enough. They should have been enough. Against human technology, they should have been more than enough." "Should have been," Hajin agreed. "But he made assumptions. He assumed my rifle was an energy weapon because it had a scope and looked advanced. So he tuned his shields to deflect energy bolts." "But your rifle fires projectiles." "Exactly. His shields were completely useless against metal bullets. I put 3 rounds through his chest plate before he realized what was happening." Keshler touched his own chest plate. "Where did you hit him?" Hajin pointed to spots on Keshler's armor. "Here, here, and here." The armor was strong, but it had joints for mobility. "I aimed for the gaps." "You studied our armor design?" "I study everything." After that first encounter, I spent weeks learning about Nexari equipment, tactics, and biology. I wanted to understand your strengths and weaknesses. What did you learn? Nexari are excellent warriors, but you follow patterns. Your training emphasizes honor and direct combat. You prefer face-to-face fights where skill determines the winner. That is the proper way to fight. Maybe, but it's also predictable. Another set of footsteps approached. Wu Jin, the human translator, emerged from the building. He carried a small electronic device for converting languages. "Captain," he said, "some of the other aliens are asking questions. They want to know about their species marks, too." "Let them come," Hajin said. Soon, a small group had gathered around Hajin. Valkyrie Zek, Miss Beings, and Rontak soldiers sat in a circle, all staring at the marks on her armor. "Tell us, said a Valkyrie officer named Raxter. "Tell us about these claw marks." Hajin pointed to the scratches on her chest plate. "Valkyrie are dangerous in close combat. Stronger than humans, faster reflexes, natural weapons. But you have a weakness." "What weakness?" "Pride. Valkyrie warriors believe that using weapons against natural claws and teeth is dishonorable. You prefer to fight with your bodies." "It is the way of our ancestors. I understand. But honor doesn't stop bullets." Hajin pointed to one particular scratch. "This mark came from a Valkyrie champion on Arcturus Prime. He challenged me to single combat, no weapons allowed." "You accepted?" "I accepted. But I never agreed to fight without weapons." Raxter's scaled face showed confusion. "But you just said no weapons were allowed." "He said no weapons. I agreed to single combat. But humans consider everything a weapon. If you use it right." "What do you mean?" Hajin pulled out her knife and showed it to the group. "This isn't just a weapon. It's also a tool. I used it to cut holes in the ground where we were fighting, small holes, almost invisible. Holes? When the Valkyrie champion charged me, he stepped in one of the holes. It threw off his balance just enough for me to get behind him. Then what? Then I used the environment as a weapon. There was a rocky cliff nearby. I led him there, let him think he was winning, then used his own momentum to send him over the edge. The Valkyrie soldiers looked uncomfortable. You didn't defeat him in honorable combat. I defeated him, Hajin said simply. Honor doesn't matter much when you're dead. Hey! Zek Fighter buzzed his wings nervously. What about our people? How did you kill 15 Zek? Hajin pointed to the small holes in her arm guard. Zek are fast and mobile. You can attack from any direction, retreat quickly, and strike again. Very effective tactics. Then how did you counter them? By taking away your mobility. She pointed to one of the marks. This one was over the forest moon of Rigel. A Zek fighter was using hit-and-run attacks against our patrol. He would dive down, strike with his stinger, then fly away before we could respond. Standard Zek tactics. Very effective tactics. But predictable. I studied his attack pattern for 2 hours. He always approached from the same direction, always flew the same route after attacking. So I set a trap. I strung nearly invisible cables between the trees along his flight path. When he tried to retreat after his next attack, he flew right into them. The Zek fighter's wings drooped. You tangled him in wires? Simple physics. A flying object hits an obstacle, it stops flying. After that, he was just another ground target. But that's not fighting, protested a Zek. That's hunting. War is hunting, Hajin replied. The goal is to make your enemy dead while keeping yourself alive. Everything else is just details. A mist being drifted closer. Through its translator. It asked, what about our species? How do you kill beings made of gas? Hajin pointed to marks on her leg armor. Mist beings are difficult opponents. You can change shape, move through small spaces, and become nearly invisible. We are proud of our advantages. You should be. But every advantage has a counter if you think about it long enough. What counter? Temperature. Mist beings are made of gas held together by electromagnetic fields. But gas responds to temperature changes. You used fire against us? Better than fire. I use cold? Hajin pulled a small device from her belt. It looked like a simple grenade, but with different markings. Cryo grenade, she explained. Drops the temperature in a small area to nearly absolute zero. Gas contracts in extreme cold. Enough cold and even electromagnetic fields can't hold. Gas together. The mist being's containment suit shimmered with distress. You froze our people? Quick and efficient. A cryo grenade in the right place, and a mist being becomes just ordinary gas scattered by the wind. The aliens were now looking at Hajin with something approaching terror. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a student of death, someone who had turned killing into a science. The Rontek marks, asked a metal-skinned soldier. How do you kill beings made of living metal? Carefully, Hajin replied. Rontek are tough. Your metal skin can stop most projectiles, resist energy weapons, and repair minor damage automatically. Then how? By finding the right tool for the job. She reached into her pack and pulled out a strange-looking bullet. It was larger than her normal ammunition, with an unusual blue tip. Armor-piercing rounds with diamond tips, she explained. Diamond is harder than your living metal. These bullets can punch through Rontek's skin like it's paper. Where do you get diamond bullets? I make them myself. Each species requires specialized ammunition. Standard rounds for most targets, explosive rounds for energy shields, diamond tips for metal skin, cryo rounds for energy beings. Keshler was staring at her with new understanding. You don't just fight us, you research us, study us, plan specifically how to kill each species. That's how you win wars, Hajin said. By being better prepared than your enemy. But that's so ... Cold, so calculating. War is cold and calculating. A side that realizes this first usually wins. The group sat in silence, processing what they had learned. Each species had thought their advantages made them superior in combat. Now they understood that their advantages had been catalogued, analyzed, and countered by a single human warrior. "Captain," Wujin said quietly, "they're afraid of you now." "Good," Hajin replied. "Fear makes people careful. Careful people make fewer mistakes." "But we're on the same side," protested Raxter. "For now," Hajin agreed. "But I've learned not to assume anything in war. Today's ally might be tomorrow's enemy. Today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally. The only constant is change." She stood up and picked up her rifle. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we attack the fortress, and I guarantee the enemy has studied us just as carefully as I've studied them." As the aliens dispersed back to the building, Keshler remained sitting on his rock. "Captain," he said, "one more question." "Yes? If we were enemies instead of allies, how would you kill me?" Hajin looked at him for a long moment. "I'd rather not think about that tonight. Please, I need to know." Hajin studied his crystal armor, noting the dawn came too quickly. The strike team gathered at the edge of the ridge, looking down at the enemy fortress in the valley below. In daylight, the stronghold looked even more intimidating than it had in the briefing. The mountain had been carved and shaped into a massive defensive position, with energy shields covering every surface. "Remind me again why we thought this was possible," muttered Kyung-ho, the human assault specialist. He was checking his equipment one final time, making sure every weapon and tool was ready. "Because impossible things become possible when you have the right plan," Hajin replied. The fortress was enormous. Built into and around a natural mountain peak, it rose nearly a kilometer into the sky. Energy barriers glowed around every level, creating a dome of protective force. Weapon platforms jutted out from the rock face like metal thorns. Sensor arrays swept back and forth, watching for any approach. "Intelligence reports were accurate," observed Commander Veltar. "The fortress has never been successfully attacked. Every assault has failed with massive casualties." "Those assaults use conventional tactics," Hajin said. "Energy weapons against energy shields. Advanced technology against advanced technology. They fought the fortress on its own terms." "And we're going to fight it on our terms?" asked Keshler. "We're going to fight it on human terms." Hajin activated her communication system and addressed the entire strike team. "Listen carefully. This fortress was designed by military engineers who think like military engineers. They prepared for every type of attack they could imagine. But they imagined attacks from their own perspective." She pointed to different sections of the fortress. Energy shields to stop energy weapons. Automated defenses to handle multiple attackers. Sensor networks to detect approaching threats. Force barriers to prevent ground assault. They thought of everything. "Except," prompted a Velkari soldier. "Except they thought like engineers, not like humans." Hajin pulled out a set of building plans that Mi-young had prepared. The documents showed the fortress layout in detail, including structural weak points that wouldn't be obvious to conventional military thinking. "Engineers build for efficiency," Hajin explained. "Every system serves multiple purposes. The fusion generators that power the energy shields also power the life support systems. The computer networks that control the weapons also control the communications. The sensor arrays that watch for enemies also monitor the fortress's own systems. So if we disrupt one system, we affect others," understood Dong Hyen. "Exactly. But more than that. Engineers always include backup systems, redundant networks, emergency protocols. They think in terms of graceful failure and controlled shutdowns." "Which means?" asked a Zek fighter. "Which means they built weaknesses into their own fortress and called them safety features." Hajin pointed to a section of the plans that showed the cooling systems for the fusion generators. "These vents aren't just for cooling. They're emergency pressure releases. If the cooling system is damaged, the generators automatically shut down to prevent explosion." "We knew that already," said Keshler. "That was our plan for destroying the shields." "That was part of our plan," Hajin corrected. "But shutting down the generators will do more than just drop the shields. It will also cut power to the life support systems. The fortress will become uninhabitable," realized Mi-young, "within hours. But the enemy won't wait hours to respond. They'll have emergency protocols to restart the generators, which means they'll have to choose between maintaining the shields and maintaining life support. Force them to make impossible choices, said Commander Veltar with appreciation. But that's just the beginning, Hajin continued. When the generators shut down, the computer networks will switch to backup power. Backup power means reduced capability. Reduced capability means vulnerabilities in their defensive systems. She pointed to the sensor arrays around the fortress. These sensors are powerful, but they require a lot of energy. On backup power, they'll have to operate in conservation mode. That means blind spots. How do you know all this? Asked a Rontak engineer. Because I've studied fortress design for 15 years. Every time I've attacked a fortified position, I've learned something new. This fortress looks unique, but it follows the same basic principles as every other fortress ever built. Which are protection, detection, and response. Protect the valuable assets, detect incoming threats, respond with overwhelming force. But each of these principles creates vulnerabilities if you know how to exploit them. Hajin stood up and shouldered her rifle. Time to go. Kyung-ho, you'll lead the diversionary assault on the main gate. Make a lot of noise, draw their attention. How much noise? Kyung-ho asked. All of it. I want every sensor and every weapon focused on your position. What about the rest of us? Asked Kishler. The aliens will split into 3 groups. Nixari and Valkyrie will attack the secondary entrances on the east side. Zek and Rontak will hit the supply routes on the west side. Mist beings will infiltrate through the ventilation systems. And the humans will go where they least expect us, straight up the main cliff face to the shield generators. The alien stared at her in shock. That's suicide, protested a Valkyrie officer. The cliff is completely exposed. Their weapons will cut you down before you get halfway up. Only if they're watching, Hajin replied. But they won't be watching the cliff. They'll be watching Kyung-ho's assault and the alien attacks and the infiltration attempts. They'll be so busy responding to threats they can detect that they won't notice the threat they can't detect. How can they not detect a team climbing a cliff? Asked Keshler. Because we won't be using any technology they can scan for. No energy weapons, no electronic equipment, no communications gear. Just ropes, pitons, and simple tools. That's insane, said a Zek fighter. That's human, corrected Taeho. The assault began at exactly noon. Kyung-ho led his diversionary attack with spectacular results. Explosions rocked the main gate as human demolition charges detonated against the energy barriers. The fortresses' weapon systems immediately focused on the threat. Filling the air with plasma bolts and energy beams, the alien teams launched their coordinated attacks. Nixari warriors charged the eastern entrances with their crystal armor blazing. Valkyrie troops smashed into the western supply routes with overwhelming force. Zek fighters swarmed through the air, drawing anti-aircraft fire from dozens of automated guns. Rontek soldiers provided heavy support with their massive weapons. Mist beings drifted through the fortress's ventilation systems. Like deadly fog. The fortress responded exactly as Hajin had predicted. Every sensor, every weapon, every defensive system focused on the visible threats. Alarms blared throughout the mountain as emergency protocols activated. Meanwhile, on the north face of the mountain, Hajin led a small team of humans up the sheer cliff. So Young, the medic, carried medical supplies and backup equipment. Dong Hyen, the sniper, provided overwatch with his rifle. Taeho coordinated with the other teams using simple hand signals instead of radio communications. The climb was dangerous and exhausting. The rock face was nearly vertical, with few handholds and loose stones that could betray their position. But they climbed in complete silence, using techniques that humans had developed thousands of years before energy weapons existed. Halfway there, Taeho whispered, pointing to the shield generator complex above them. Movement on the eastern approach? Hyen reported quietly. The Nexari assault is drawing heavy fire. Good, Hajin replied. The more attention they get, the less attention we get, they continued climbing. Below them, the battle raged with increasing intensity. Energy weapons lit up the sky as the fortress's defenders fought desperately against multiple attacks. The noise was tremendous, providing perfect cover for the human infiltration. There, Hajin pointed to a small maintenance hatch near the base of the shield generator. That's our way in. The hatch was protected by a simple electronic lock. Mi Young would have been able to bypass it easily, but she was with the diversionary assault. Instead, Hajin used a more direct approach. She pulled out a small explosive charge and attached it to the lock. The explosion was tiny compared to the battle raging below, but it was enough to destroy the mechanism. Inside, she ordered. The maintenance tunnel was narrow and dark, but it led directly to the generator complex. As they crawled through the confined space, they could hear the hum of massive machinery above them. Fusion generators, So Young observed. The power output is enormous. And the cooling system is right here, Teho added, pointing to massive pipes that ran alongside the tunnel. They reached the generator chamber and carefully cut through the access panel. Inside, the room was filled with the thunderous noise of the fusion reactors. Energy flowed through conduits like liquid lightning, powering the fortress's shields and weapons. There, Hajin pointed to the cooling system controls. Dong Haiyan, watch the entrance. So Young, prepare the charges. Teho, find the emergency shutdown controls. What about you? Teho asked. I'm going to make sure they can't restart the system easily. Hajin moved to the main control console and began methodically destroying critical components. Not enough to cause an explosion, but enough to ensure that repairs would take hours instead of minutes. Charges set, So Young reported. Emergency controls located. The fortress had fallen completely by evening. What had taken decades to build was destroyed in a single day. The massive structure that had never been successfully attacked now lay broken and burning, its shields down and its weapons silent. In the main courtyard, the strike team gathered to assess their victory. The cost had been surprisingly low. Thanks to Hajin's strategy, most of the alien teams had faced reduced resistance when the shields failed and the weapons lost power. Namjun, the human intelligence officer, was analyzing data from the captured computers. His equipment was simple compared to alien technology, but it was effective at extracting information from damaged systems. Captain, he called to Hajin, you need to see this. Hajin walked over to where Namjun had set up his portable computer. The screen showed files and data streams from the fortress's central database. What did you find? Intelligence on the enemy's new weapon systems. This fortress was their main research facility. They were developing something called a species-specific targeting system, meaning weapons that could identify different alien species and adjust their effects accordingly. A single weapon that could fire different types of energy depending on the target. Hajin studied the data. Adaptive weapons. They could counter Nexari shields with one setting, penetrate Valkyrie armor with another, disrupt Zek flight systems with a third. Exactly. If they had completed this project, it would have made their forces incredibly effective against any alien opposition. Any alien opposition, Hajin repeated thoughtfully. What about human opposition? Namjun scrolled through more files. That's the interesting part. Their weapons were designed to counter every known alien species, but there's almost nothing about humans in their database. They didn't consider us a serious threat. More than that, they barely considered us at all. Look at this. Namjun brought up a tactical analysis file. It contained detailed studies of Nexari combat techniques, Valkyrie battle tactics, Zek flight patterns, and strategies for every other species in the Galactic Coalition. But the human section was only 2 pages long, and mostly contained outdated information. They studied everyone except us, Hajin observed. And that's why we won, said a voice behind them. They turned to see Keshler approaching. The Nexari warrior's crystal armor had been repaired, but he still moved carefully from his injuries during the initial assault. What do you mean? Namjun asked. The enemy prepared for energy weapons, advanced shields, and high-tech tactics. They prepared for aliens fighting like aliens. They never prepared for humans fighting like humans. Hajin nodded. Primitive weapons, simple tactics, and old-fashioned strategy, we were the one variable they didn't account for. More team members gathered around as word spread about the intelligence discovery. Commander Veltar studied the enemy files with growing amazement. This explains why every previous assault failed, he said. The enemy knew exactly how we would attack because they had studied our methods for years. But they never studied human methods, added Raxter, the Velkari officer. They dismissed your species as irrelevant. Their mistake, said Hajin simply. She walked away from the group and found a quiet place to sit. From her pack she pulled out a small toolkit and began working on her armor. The battle had added several new dents and scratches that needed to be properly marked. Teho approached and sat down beside her. How many new marks, Captain? 17 confirmed kills. 3 species I hadn't encountered before, plus additional marks for species I already knew. Where will you put them? Hajin pointed to different sections of her armor. The new species will need their own areas. I'll have to reorganize some of the existing marks to make room. Still keeping them in alphabetical order? Of course. Organization is important. As she worked, other team members came over to watch. The aliens no longer looked at her armor with mockery or confusion. They watched with fascination and respect as she carefully carved each new mark. Captain, said a young Zek fighter, may I ask you something? Go ahead. When you mark a kill, do you remember the individual, or just the species? Hajin paused in her work. I remember everyone, all of them. Every face, every fight, every decision that led to their death. Each mark represents a specific moment when I had to choose between their life and mine or my teammates' lives. The Zek fighter was quiet for a moment. Doesn't that bother you? Remembering all those deaths? It should bother me, Hajin replied. The day I stop being bothered by taking lives is the day I should stop being a soldier. But you keep fighting. Because the alternative is letting my friends and allies die instead. She finished marking the new kills and put away her tools. The armor now bore the record of another successful battle, another impossible victory achieved through human determination and ingenuity. Captain, Kessler said formally, I owe you an apology. For what? For mocking your equipment. For questioning your abilities. For assuming that newer technology is always better technology. No apology needed, Hajin said. You judged based on your experience. Most species do equate advancement with superiority, but humans don't. Humans equate effectiveness with superiority. Doesn't matter if a weapon is 1,000 years old or was invented yesterday. What matters is whether it works. A mist being drifted closer. Through its translator it said, We have learned much from fighting alongside humans. Your tactics are unlike anything we were taught. What were you taught? Hajin asked. Mayra stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive docking bay. The Kepler station stretched out in all directions, its walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. She had never seen anything like it before. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above her head, and the air smelled different here. Not bad, just different. First time on an alien station? Asked a voice behind her. Mayra turned around and saw a tall man in a dark blue uniform walking toward her. His name tag read Commander June, and he had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Yes, sir, Mayra said, trying not to sound nervous. I'm Myra, the new systems engineer. Commander June nodded and picked up her bag. Welcome to Kepler Station. I know it looks scary, but you'll get used to it. We all did. As they walked through the corridors, Myra tried not to stare at everything around her. The walls were smooth and curved, not like anything humans built. Strange patterns of light moved under the surface, like water flowing through glass. Sometimes she saw other humans walking by, but she also saw creatures that made her heart race. A tall, thin being with 4 arms and skin like tree bark nodded at Commander June as they passed. Its head was shaped like a triangle, and it had large black eyes that seemed to see everything at once. That's Dr. Keth, Commander June explained. He's from the That Collective. Very smart, very helpful. The Thek have been studying this station longer than anyone. They turned a corner and nearly bumped into something that looked like a walking crystal. It was about Myra's height, but its body was made of what looked like blue glass. Light moved through it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Good morning, Veltar," Commander June said to the crystal being. The creature made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Somehow, Myra understood it was saying hello. "The Norl don't speak like we do," Commander June said as they kept walking. "They use sound and light patterns. The translation devices help, but it takes time to get used to." Myra nodded, feeling more nervous with each step. What was she doing here? She was just a basic engineer from Earth. She fixed broken things and maintained systems. She didn't know anything about alien technology or ancient civilizations. They entered a large room filled with workstations and screens. Humans and aliens worked side by side, studying images and data that scrolled across the displays. The room buzzed with quiet conversation in different languages. "This is our main research center," Commander June said. "The Valeri built this station thousands of years ago, maybe longer. We're trying to figure out how it works and why they built it here." "The Valeri?" Myra asked. "The aliens who built this place, they're gone now. Have been for a very long time. But they left this station behind, and it's full of technology we don't understand yet." A woman with short black hair looked up from her workstation and waved at them. She had dirt on her hands and looked tired but excited. "That's Dr. Hannah," Commander June said. "She's our lead scientist here." "Dr. Hannah, come meet our new engineer." Dr. Hannah walked over, wiping her hands on a cloth. "You must be Myra. Welcome to the most frustrating job in the galaxy." "Frustrating?" Myra asked. Dr. Hannah laughed. "We've been here for 2 years, and we still can't turn on most of the systems. The Valeri technology is so advanced that we can barely understand the basics. It's like trying to fix a computer with stone tools." But that's why we need good engineers," Commander June said. "Someone who can look at things differently and maybe find solutions we've missed." Dr. Hannah led them to a smaller room filled with tools and spare parts. "This will be your workspace. Most of the station's basic systems are working fine. Life, support, gravity, things like that. But there are whole sections we can't access because we can't figure out how to open the doors." Myra looked around the room. The tools were a mix of human and alien technology. Some things she recognized, others were completely strange. "What exactly will I be doing?" "Maintenance mostly," Dr. Hannah said. "Keeping the systems we do understand. Running properly. But if you see anything interesting, anything that doesn't make sense, let us know. Sometimes fresh eyes see things we miss." Commander June checked his watch. "I'll let you get settled in. Dr. Hannah can show you around and explain the safety rules. The most important thing to remember is don't touch anything that glows red." We learned that the hard way. After Commander June left, Dr. Hannah gave Myra a tour of the station. The parts where humans and aliens worked were bright and clean. The air was fresh and the temperature was comfortable, but they also passed sealed doors that led to dark corridors where no one was allowed to go. "Those areas are off limits," Dr. Hannah explained. "We tried to explore them when we first arrived, but the station's security systems activated. Nothing dangerous happened, but we got locked out for 3 days. Now we stick to the areas where we're obviously welcome." They visited the dining hall, where humans and aliens ate together at long tables. The food was mostly human, but there were special sections for different alien diets. Myra watched a Thek eat something that looked like metal shavings while a Norl absorbed colored liquids through its crystalline skin. "It takes some getting used to," Dr. Hannah said, noticing Myra's expression. "But they're all good people, well, good beings. You know what I mean." The living quarters were small, but comfortable. Myra's room had a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out into space. She could see other ships docked at the station and stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds. "Get some rest tonight. Dr. Hannah said. Tomorrow we'll start you on some basic maintenance tasks. Nothing too complicated at first. That evening, Myra sat in her room and looked out at the stars. She thought about her family back on Earth and wondered what they would think if they could see her now. Her mother had always said she would do great things, but Myra had never believed it. She was just ordinary. Just another person trying to make her way in the universe. She fell asleep wondering if she would ever really belong here, among all these brilliant scientists and advanced aliens. The station hummed quietly around her, its ancient systems continuing their mysterious work as they had for thousands of years. In her dreams, she heard something calling to her from deep within the station. A voice that seemed familiar, though she had never heard it before. It spoke in a language she didn't recognize, but somehow she understood what it was saying. It was saying, "Welcome home." But when she woke up the next morning, she couldn't remember the dream at all. She only remembered feeling like she belonged somewhere for the first time in her life.